In 2024, Europol reported that out of 449 individuals arrested for terrorism-related offences in the European Union, 133 were between the ages of 12 and 20. This alarming statistic underscores a growing trend of youth involvement in extremist activities. The majority of these young individuals were linked to jihadist terrorism, 114 cases, and right-wing extremism, 12 cases. Their activities range from participating in attacks, 57 cases, to disseminating propaganda, 32 cases, and being members of terrorist or violent extremist groups, only 17 cases. Europol's Executive Director Catherine de Boll emphasized that terrorist groups are increasingly targeting vulnerable youths, especially those grappling with mental health issues, social isolation, or digital dependency. The report also noted that many of these young perpetrators were self-radicalized online, often acting alone or within small peer groups without direct connections to centralized organizations. This trend presents a complex and evolving threat landscape within the EU. The individuals arrested in 2024 for terrorism-related offences in the EU, particularly those aged between 12 and 20, predominantly fit a profile marked by vulnerability and susceptibility to radical ideologies. These young perpetrators were mostly male and often experienced social isolation, familial dysfunction, and mental health challenges. Their radicalization pathways were largely facilitated through online platforms, where they encountered extremist content and communities that validated their grievances. In the case of jihadist-linked youths, many were influenced by propaganda promoting a distorted interpretation of religious doctrines, leading them to justify violence as a form of ideological expression. Conversely, young individuals drawn to right-wing extremism often harbored deep-seated resentments towards societal structures, perceiving them as oppressive or unresponsive. These youths exhibited a fascination with weapons, explosives, and mass shooters, further indicating a dangerous convergence of personal grievances and violent ideologies. Notably, their actions were typically carried out independently or within small, loosely connected peer groups, rather than under the directive of established terrorist organizations. This decentralized mode of operation complicates detection and prevention efforts, highlighting the need for comprehensive strategies addressing the root causes of youth radicalization. The surge in youth involvement in terrorism within the EU in 2024 can be attributed to a confluence of personal vulnerabilities and the pervasive influence of extremist ideologies accessible through digital platforms. For many young individuals, experiences of social alienation, mental health struggles, and familial instability create a fertile ground for radicalization. Extremist groups exploit these vulnerabilities by offering a sense of purpose, belonging, and identity, often absent in these youths' lives. Jihadist ideologies appeal to some by presenting a narrative of religious duty and martyrdom, framing violence as a legitimate means to achieve spiritual fulfillment or societal change. These narratives are disseminated through sophisticated online propaganda, which glorifies acts of terror and portrays perpetrators as heroes defending their faith. For others, particularly those drawn to right-wing extremism, the motivation stems from perceived threats to cultural identity, economic stability, or societal norms. These individuals often adopt a worldview that vilifies certain groups and justifies violence as a necessary response to these perceived threats. The common thread among these youths is the process of self-radicalization, primarily occurring in online echo chambers that reinforce extremist beliefs and desensitize individuals to violence. The anonymity and accessibility of the internet allow these ideologies to proliferate unchecked, reaching impressionable minds and fostering a sense of community among like-minded individuals. This digital radicalization bypasses traditional gatekeeping mechanisms, making it challenging for authorities to identify and intervene before individuals commit acts of terror. Understanding the motivations behind youth radicalization necessitates a multifaceted approach that addresses both the ideological allure of extremist narratives and the underlying personal and societal factors that render individuals susceptible to such influences. Efforts must focus on early intervention, mental health support, and digital literacy to equip youths with the tools to critically assess and resist extremist content. The ideologies driving youth radicalization in the EU are propagated by various extremist groups and actors that exploit digital platforms to disseminate their messages and recruit new members. Jihadist organizations such as the Islamic State, IS, have developed sophisticated online propaganda campaigns targeting vulnerable youths. These campaigns often depict a utopian vision of a caliphate, glorify martyrdom, and frame participation in violent jihad as a noble and necessary endeavor. The objective is to instill a sense of purpose and belonging in individuals who feel marginalized, thereby expanding their influence and operational reach. Similarly, right-wing extremist groups leverage online forums, social media, and encrypted messaging apps to spread ideologies centered on nationalism, xenophobia, and anti-government sentiments. These groups often romanticize historical narratives, promote conspiracy theories, and dehumanize perceived enemies, creating an environment where violence is seen as a justified response to societal changes or threats. Their motivation lies in preserving a perceived cultural purity and resisting globalization or multiculturalism. Both jihadist and right-wing extremist groups are likely to continue encouraging similar acts of violence, particularly as they adapt to technological advancements and exploit emerging platforms to reach broader audiences. The decentralized nature of these groups, coupled with the anonymity afforded by the Internet, allows them to operate with relative impunity, making it challenging for authorities to monitor and disrupt their activities effectively. To counteract these influences, it is imperative to implement comprehensive strategies that include monitoring online spaces for extremist content, promoting counter-narratives, and engaging with communities to build resilience against radicalization. Education systems should incorporate digital literacy programs to help youths critically evaluate online information, while mental health services must be accessible to address the underlying issues that make individuals susceptible to extremist ideologies. Collaboration between governments, tech companies, and civil society is essential to create a multifaceted approach to prevent the spread of violent extremism and protect vulnerable populations. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to hear of new content. We'd love to hear your comments.